If you're an actor looking for honest conversations about those tricky early years of the industry, then keep on watching as we figure out how we can get from the couch to the call sheet. Hi, my name is Amy and welcome back to Couch to Call Sheet, the new series where we're going to be speaking and exploring about all of those tricky topics that we encounter when it comes to being a young emerging actor in the acting industry. So as you can see by the title, today's episode is about agents and all things agents, whether that's how do we get one? How do we not get one? What to do when you're dropped by an agent? Do we need agents? We're going to be exploring all of those topics today, so stay tuned if you're interested, and welcome to the channel if... I feel like Zoella. Welcome if you are here for the first time, and also welcome back if you are here from episode 1. I appreciate all 2 of you coming back for more. No, but yeah, thank you for the response on the first one. It was very lovely. So we're back for round 2. As you can see, the setup has changed a bit because I am losing my rag. This is probably the 9th take that I've done for this because the sun kept coming out. And I'd be making a really good point and the sun would come out and it would be right in my eyes. And I was losing the will, ladies and gents. So we've moved the setup because I've got work at 5. I need to do this today. So we've thought on our feet, we've taken initiative and we've moved the set around. So I hope you don't mind, but I was losing it. So rant over, let's get into the episode and chat about agents. So first things first, what is an agent? Because not everyone might know. I know my mum and dad watch these and they just about have figured out what it is that a spotlight is, or my dad still calls WhatsApp WhatsApp and calls Snapchat Snipchat. So you can imagine when I try and tell him about Spotlight and all these other things, how we get on. So yes, what is an agent? An agent is somebody, a very important piece in the puzzle, is somebody who will submit you for jobs. So the kind of chain of events goes that a casting director will have a job that comes up that they're casting for EastEnders, for example, and they are looking for somebody to play Phil Mitchell's long lost cousin. They will put that brief of they want someone of this height, this build, this ethnicity, this age, whatever the case may be. They'll put that on Spotlight and that brief will go out to agents. And agents will then look at that brief, and if they have someone on their books who ticks all those boxes, they will then submit them to the casting director, and then the casting director will either not say no, you will never hear back if you're not wanted in the room. But the casting director will then either invite you in for, very rarely now, into the room for an audition, or they will request a self-tape. So that's essentially what an agent does. I mean, they do a lot more than that. They are kind of there as someone to guide you and support you in the industry. I know my agent does. I'm constantly on her about, is this right? I'm feeling a bit shit this week about this. Oh, what do you think of this? Oh, by the way, I'm doing this week. You can have very different relationships with your agent. So like my agent, for example, we have a very casual, friendly relationship. So like we can go to the pub and chat about anything, but then when it comes to the work, we're really serious and professional, and that really works for me. But I know that some people prefer a lot more by the book, strict, businessy relationships with their agent, and that's absolutely okay as well. I think something to remember is when choosing your agent is that they also have to be the right fit for you. It isn't just about going for one of the big 5 and wanting to be with them because it's one of the big 5. They do also have to, it has to be a relationship that you want and will work for you as well. So just something to keep in mind. I'm going to try and briefly cover my experience thus far with agents and getting agents and losing agents. I wasn't sure whether to reveal this because I'm not embarrassed by it, because it's how my journey is unfolding, and I kind of have to trust the process with it. And when you put it all into context, this is what happens as an actor trying to make it. It doesn't always go to plan. So in a nutshell, I've had 4 agents. Again, it sounds like a lot, and I guess it is, but the first 2 I don't really count for these following reasons. So obviously, as you'll know, I left drama school without an agent, and I felt like the biggest failure in the world, and I felt really shit, and I felt like I wasn't worthy of getting an agent. I was never going to get one. It all just was a bit up in the air, and I felt really, really rubbish. And I was like, well, I now have to be the one to get my agent, and what if I don't say the right thing? I now haven't got a drama school to rely on and support me. So I obviously went onto Spotlight as self-represented, and I got approached by an agency, never heard of them, very minimal kind of online presence. And I, at that point, was just so desperate to sign with anybody. I was just like, yes, I'll do it. So I remember he invited me to, I think it was Soho House next to the Prince Edward, and it was for a meeting, and I was like, oh my god, and like the lady took me up the stairs, and I was like, hi, I'm here for a meeting with, I can't remember his name. I can, but I shan't say. I was like, I'm here for a meeting with blah blah blah. And she took me to the sea, and like I got a free glass of water, and then he paid for a free hot chockey. I was loving life. I thought, this is what it's going to be like forever. And we had the meeting, and I think I was just like, yes to everything. Obviously signed with him. And I remember a month later, I was out with my brother, and I got an email from the agent, and I was like, this is my first tape. This is my tape for Eponine on the West End. Open the email. Hi, Amy. I'm leaving the agency. See ya. Effectively, what it said. So I was like, oh, so now I don't have an agent. My first agent, and I've been dropped. Great, smashing, brilliant. But obviously now looking back at that in hindsight, you know, it was a very brief 1-month relationship. I didn't get any tapes from him. It was a desperate clutch at just anything. So we don't really count that one. But after that, I then was back in the position of feeling like I just needed an agent, because I was like, I'm not an actor if I don't have an agent. So I then applied for an agency that my friend was with, and it was an application process rather than like a meeting and stuff. So I did the application, sent off a tape, and they signed me. They weren't the right agent for me. I did it because I wanted an agent, and I didn't really care who it was. And that relationship lasted 3 months, and I think I had maybe 1 tape a month. But I then very organically, very nicely met a newer agent who was well established in London. And this is what I mean by, you know, you can meet an agent anywhere. An agent relationship can come up from, if I click my fingers, I can't click with this hand, I can only click with this hand. An agent relationship can start or come about from the weirdest and most random of places. So like, always be ready. I met my third agent at my work Christmas pantomime that I was performing in, and he was in the panto that year, and his day job was an agent. And I was pissed on stage playing the role of Cinderella, and he signed me. So you never know, kids, so keep on going. I remember being in the bar at the after party afterwards, like, I really want this, and I really would love a good agent. So surprisingly, again, he invited me to London for a meeting, had another free hot chockey, and signed with him, and was really excited because I remember feeling for the first time that this potentially was it, and this actually could amount to something. And I remember I recorded my reaction when I got the email of the offer home, and I was so excited. However, that then lasted about 1.5 years, and unfortunately he then left the agency as well, and I was unrepresented for the 3rd time in about 2 years, and I was then approached by another agent on Spotlight, and I'm now with her today, and it's all good, it's all groovy, and things are going well. So a very short whistle-stop tour of me and my journey with agents. I feel like it's such an exhausting process trying to get an agent, and I feel like it's actually a really difficult thing to do. Like, I feel like sometimes we put agents on this pedestal of power and you know, influence, and yeah, do you know what I mean? I feel like we put them up really, really high, and we look at agents and we worship, and we're like, oh my gosh, you're the most important person ever that I have to impress, and you're untouchable, and this, that, the other. But it's like, they are just us at the end of the day. They are just normal people, and I try and remember that, because I feel like I used to be really scared of agents and anything to do with an agent when I was younger. But they are just normal people, and it is a job for them, and it's a very fun job, and you know, they want to do as good as a job of finding the right person and the right clients as we do wanting to find the best agent. So I try and not view agents with this lens of oh my God, like, hi, no. It's like, no, go in professional, go in ready, prepared, polite, be yourself, and that, I think, will prevail any day of the week. Saying that, though, as I've already touched on, sometimes your agent drops you. And what the hell do you do in that situation? So, yeah, my third agent, who I loved very, very much, and I had a few good tapes with him, and I was really, really happy at that agency. I went travelling for 3 months last year, had the absolute best 3 months of my life, was really geared up and feeling ready to go for the rest of the year. I was like, right, I've done my fun, I'm back, I'm ready to work, ready to get on with the work. And I had a call from my agent, and I was very much like, oh, this is the call where we're going to speak about where do we go from here. So I was like, hey, yeah, travelling was great, like, right, I'm ready to work, what do we do, what's next? And she was like, yeah, it wasn't even my agent, it was the agency director. And she was like, yeah, so we think that it's best if you find someone else. Oh. I remember being utterly speechless. I was like, I thought we were calling to discuss next steps, and clearly you've just taken the steps away. I'm like fallen. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, because my agent left. But I thought that she kind of would have taken me on, and that wasn't what happened. And I, tried to just get through the phone call, and as soon as the phone call finished, I burst into tears, and I was beside myself. Naturally, I was so upset, and there was part of me, mourning the relationship that I had with him, but then also it was like, oh, I've got to go through this again, find another agent, do this, that, the other. It's grad season. No one's going to want me. I'm now 2 years out of drama school, no credits. Who's going to be interested? No one. And I think that was more, what upset me at the time. So, yeah, being dropped by an agent sucks. Like, let's not beat around the bush. It sucks. But I think the best thing to do is to try and spin that negative into a positive. Don't get me wrong, as soon as I was dropped, twice, I called my two best friends who are also in the industry, and I was like, I've been dropped, like, this is awful. But I was like, right, well, I now don't have an agent, and what does that mean? That means that I'm not contractually obligated to anything. That means I can now reassess, who do I really want to be with? What agents are producing clients that whose work I really align with, whose work I really respect, whose careers I could see myself following the trajectory of. What could I be doing in the meantime to get better? What student films, what projects, what plays, what could I submit myself for? The pigeons are fighting. If it's not the sun, it's the pigeons. Like, give me a minute here. That was my mindset of, I was like, what can I now do to make this the best out of the bad situation? And I did. I just kind of tried to work on myself. I was like, right, let's just have a minute and take some time off, work on my materials, reach out to the right people, target individuals who I really thought I could see myself with. Again, a lot of that didn't really amount to anything, but I remember, obviously I then went back onto self-represented on Spotlight, and I was approached, I think, by 3 agents, and I had meetings with them all, and I signed with one. I absolutely have the ambitions to be with, one of the big agencies one day. Absolutely, I've got the ambitions to do that. However, I think it's really important to, now that, I've kind of had a few years out of drama school, I think it's important to have an agent that does reflect where you are at in your career. Of course, we'd all love to be with CAA, but is CAA going to sign someone who's not got a credit, who's just out of drama school, who no one really knows who they are? Absolutely not. And I was very naive, I think, in drama school. I very much thought that I would sign with one of the big 5 when I left, just because I'd been to drama school. I distinctly remember we were upstairs doing like our email invites to agents and casting directors for our shows. Or maybe it was after our shows and we were now emailing people for representation, and I emailed an agent that I have kind of had my sights on for a long time, and I would absolutely love to be with them one day. And I emailed this agent and I was like, hi, sent it off. And then I got a reply within about 40 minutes, and I remember it came in my inbox. I was like, I was like, guys, so-and-so has just replied to me, like, they've signed me. They've just sent me an email back saying they want me immediately. I remember my friend was texting me, I was like, I went to the email, and it said, hi Amy, thank you for your interest, blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, we don't think we're the right agent for you, but best of luck. I was like, oh, that's not what I expected. How stupid of me. How stupid, silly, and naive. But yes, I've been brought back down a bit to earth since then, that, you know, just because your agent is small or a newer agency or doesn't have as many followers or whatever the case may be, doesn't make them any less important or doesn't mean they're any less of a fit for you. You know, there's pros and cons to the big agencies. The massive ones obviously are great because they get the work, they have the reputations, big studios will go back to them time and time again, so of course you want to be with one of them. But then if you don't get any work with them in a year, they might drop you. There's pros and cons to it. So if you're with a smaller agency, then like my agent has a lot of time for me because she's also a new agent, so she equally has something to prove and is hungry as much as I am. So it's a good match then because we're both after the same goal. So just, you know, when you're choosing your agents, don't be upset that you've not signed with CAA straight away, because that was me. I was like, God, I'm not signed with independent, like I'm a failure. It's like, no, Amy, be for real. Like, be for real, have a minute. You're not going to sign. Of course some people do. There are those handful of people who do sign with the big agents straight away, and good for them. I'm sure everyone would love that, but then equally it's like, well, start from the bottom and build your way up and see where you go from there, because you could start from the top and then be dropped within a year, and then it's like, oh, well, if I've been dropped up here, then, you know, you've now got to do all of that to get back up there, or someone up here might not take you back, or whatever the case may be. So just, you know, be patient. How do you get an agent? Isn't that the question that we'd all like to know the answer to? I know I bloody would. This is the whole thing. It's a catch-22, isn't it? Because agents won't take you on if you haven't got much work, but then to get the work you have to get the agent. So tell me what I'm meant to do in this situation. As I have kind of mentioned, you can get an agent there's no right or wrong way to get an agent. Like, you could be very much in the right place at the right time, as I was performing as a pissed Cinderella on stage and the guy in the audience happened to be an agent. You could have that, or you could have a meeting that you've come out of drama school, or you've emailed an agent and they'd like to meet you and you're in a coffee shop and they offer you representation. Like, it can happen in any which way. And I remember I always was online, like, looking for videos of how did Margot Robbie get her agent, or how did Florence Pugh start out, or whatever it may be. And I was always like, how did they get their agent? And I feel like there's still not a definitive answer out there, because there isn't a definitive answer. I think you just have to be realistic, and as I said, you know, be realistic, I think, mentally, so you're not setting yourself up for disappointment when CAA don't want you. Be ready, be prepared, be engaged, know who you're meeting, know about the agency, don't just go in for the name, but actually know about the agent that you're meeting as well. Yeah, just be open-minded, I think, and be yourself. But I actually think in general, getting an agent is a lot harder of a thing to do than people make out to be. I think people always just say, oh yeah, get an agent. I'm like, but actually getting an agent is really difficult. Like, I know that I've had 4, but it's not been easy to get any of them, really. You still have to have the meeting, they still have to decide whether they want you. And it's, you know, for every 30 emails you'll send to an agent, you'll get a response from one saying that they're not interested, or thank you, we wish you the best, but no. So, like, I think if you're applying for agents at the moment, you haven't got one, or you're not getting anywhere, like, try not to beat yourself up about it. And I know that's easier said than done, but it's, I think, a lot harder than people make out to be. It's not easy. And I think sometimes when you look at the musical theatre industry or any industry, and people will say that they've got into shows or got into this and got into that, and it's like, well, they have an agent then, but, you know, great that you've got into that show, but, like, there's so many steps to get into that show, and then, like, the first step is trying to get an agent, and that's really, really difficult. So as much as you can see people having all this success and all this fun and wealth and whatever, like, it takes a long way to get there. They haven't just had it all handed to them. So, you know, it's not a quick fix. It's not something that happens really, really quickly. Again, it can be for some people, but to get the right agent and to find the right match, I think just be prepared. Have your materials in shape, have your headshots all nice, and just, I think, trust the process when it comes to agents, is because the right relationship could be around the corner. And I know that sounds really like, oh, cheesy, but it's not easy. So be kind to yourself when you're doing it, because otherwise you'll then go down the hole of, I'm not good enough, no one wants me. But like, there's so many factors that goes into why clients will or will not choose you. And then, you know, there's so many grads that come out, and so you're in a pool of like 1,000 people, thousands of people across the country who all look the same, who can all do the same kicks, who can all do the same Shakespeare piece. So like, there's so many factors that go into it. A lot of them sometimes you can't control. So like, if you don't sign straight away, think about how you can turn that into a positive. Work on yourself, work on your materials, and just know that it's a timing thing. It's not necessarily a you thing. On a similar topic, I think reaching out to agents is also really important to think about. I think in a nutshell, they always say to keep it short, snappy, direct, know who you're emailing, be polite, have your materials, have your headshot in the body of the email. I have a funny-ish story about emailing agents. I was travelling in Vietnam when I was 19, and I emailed Curtis Brown when I was 19. Hadn't yet been to drama school, hadn't yet been to uni. I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to email them. Because they might really like that I'm travelling and find me really quirky. So I emailed them from the sleeper bus, and I still have the email in my drafts. In my sent emails, I still have it to this day. And I started the email like, hi, I'm currently writing this to you from a sleeper bus in Vietnam because I'm travelling around the world at the moment. I'm 19, give me a break. And I sent them my whole life story about what I was doing in Vietnam and why I thought that they'd be good for me and why I thought I'd be good for them, and this blah 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 blah. And they probably saw it and thought, this fucking idiot, get rid. So yeah, don't do that. As you can imagine, I didn't get signed by Curtis Brown from that email, but just funny that I thought that would have worked back then. So don't send really long essays to emails, and especially not Curtis Brown. An agent is a partnership. And what I mean by that is it's a two-way street. I think sometimes we have this perception that agents, as soon as you have one, they do all the work for you, and that you can just take a little back seat and they'll just send you things, and that's how that will work. Whilst to a degree that is true, it's a two-way relationship. It's, you have to put in as much effort as your agent is putting in to you. Otherwise it won't work. So by that, you know, I still do a lot of my own work. Whilst I have my own agent, I know what things that she'll put me up for, and so then what I can't apply for. But in the meantime, the little projects that will get me showreel footage or make me a connection with somebody, whatever the case may be, I will put myself forward for those. I put myself in classes, I do plays, I go to auditions for things, kind of just for the experience. I update my material often. I do lots of things off of my own back that she doesn't tell me to do, but I know that it's important to do it for the relationship to work. So yeah, I think just because you have an agent, don't get lazy with it, I guess, is what I want to say. Like, you still, it again, it doesn't fix all your problems, and it doesn't just mean that you can not do anything and just sit by the phone and wait for it to ring. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do that as well. Like, I'm awful for that. Whenever I send in a tape, I'm like staring at my phone like, why have they not called me yet? Why haven't I not got the job? Be careful with that, because that will then send you into a bit of a spiral, I think, so don't do that. So let's try and wrap this up by answering the question, do you need an agent to be an actor? No, is the simple truth of it. Of course there are pros and cons. The pros are, yes, they get you seen in front of casting directors, yes, they get your name out there, yes, you get exposure to bigger projects. However, again, there is no guarantee. Like, my previous agent, I was with him for 1.5 years and I had 4 tapes. 4. I barely had one. It was like one every 3 months, one every 2 months. And even with my current agent, I think I've had 4 again. So some people get loads, some people don't get many at all. So again, there's no guarantee. And just because someone has an agent doesn't mean that they're getting tapes in, week out. Like, again, you can go through massive dry periods. So again, if you have an agent and you aren't getting tapes, girl, same. There's no rhyme or reason as to why you may get a tape versus someone else who doesn't get a tape. Like, there's just so much, and I think we as actors need to give ourselves a break sometimes, because there's so much that is out of our control that we really just need to take a breather with it. Because I put a lot of pressure on myself to, why am I not getting tapes? Why am I not getting this through? Why? It's like, just breathe, man. Just breathe. Like, there's so much out of our control. Trust the process and follow the journey. Like, I'm working on that, and I'm really trying to work on that this year, because sometimes it mentally is not good for me. We've got an episode on that coming later. But yes, you don't need an agent. You can get your own work without agents. Lots of people work without agents. I have friends that don't have agents that are working. You don't need one. It's a tool, and it's a very important piece of the puzzle, but the puzzle's very big, and there's lots of pieces, and it's just one piece, and you can get by without it. And as I said earlier, sometimes having an agent that isn't right for you is worse than not having one at all. If you're then getting jobs that you don't want to be doing, if you're getting, you know, if you go to an audition that you really don't want to go to, and your agent's like, no, you need to go, and you don't feel comfortable, and it's not a trustworthy relationship, like, just, I'd say the takeaway would be, take your time to finding an agent that is really the right fit. Don't just get one for the sake of it. I know that is easier said than done, and I know that's exactly what I have done in the past, but do the research, do the work, because being talented isn't enough to get an agent anymore. Like, there are so many aspects that agents use to make a decision on whether to take in a client or not. So don't just rely on talent, you know, be hardworking, stay in classes, keep your materials up to date, give yourself the best chance possible at getting an agent. But if you don't get one, or you don't get interest straight away, especially when you leave drama school, like, take a minute. It's not always about you, and it's not always a reflection on your talent. It's the industry. What does the industry want from you at the minute? Oversaturated books. Like, the truth of it is, there's so many people wanting to do it. So I think the takeaway then is, if you have an agent, like a small agent, or you are having an agent meeting, there are people who don't have those things, who don't have an agent. So if you have one, I don't want to say be grateful for it, but just know that that is a good thing. Because I used to be someone, I think, who wouldn't look down on smaller agents, but I always aim big. I have big goals, I'm very ambitious, and I always was like, I want to be with one of the big five after graduation, and that is not realistic. But the smaller agents have taught me a lot, and I've learned and I've grown, and I have managed to audition in front of Pearson Casting, or audition for this UK tour, or audition for this commercial. Like, I have had opportunities from those smaller agents, and it is a journey, and I trust that I will get there one day, but this is where I'm at the minute. And just because I'm with a smaller agency, or just because you may only get interest from smaller agencies, don't bash that, and know that your time with a bigger agency, or know that your time with a tape that will be right for you, will come. Enjoy the journey, work hard, be passionate, and what is for you will be for you. So I think that's going to wrap up today's episode. I am not very well, so if that was all a bit over the place today, then I apologise, but I have been waiting until today to record this, so I wanted to get it done. But I hope you found that useful. Again, I feel like I've just spoken and I've got no idea what I said, so I hope I touched on some good things, and I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, so take it easy if you're trying to get an agent. Like, it'll happen. But equally, if it doesn't happen, it's not a reflection on you. It's the industry, babes. So keep on going with it. So next episode is going to be about self-tapes. So if you're interested in that, then make sure you like, comment and subscribe, because that'll be coming out shortly. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for watching. Bye.